Joe says he was a kid when this happened. He and his uncle were out in the woods gathering and chopping some firewood for their grandmother. And it was starting to get late, so they finished up and they got in the truck to make their way back to Grandma's house. And they're on the dirt road. They're doing probably 30 miles an hour, give or take, when all of a sudden, Joe says he just felt like he was being watched. And he was just about to take a look out the passenger side window when his uncle says, "Don't! Look at me. Just look at me. Don't look out the window. Just look at me." And Joe froze. He didn't know what was going on. His heart started to pound in his chest. And he says his heart damn near stopped when all of a sudden he could hear tapping on the passenger side window. So his uncle speeds up the truck to try to get out of there and starts praying in Navajo under his breath. And after a couple minutes, Joe thought maybe it was over until he felt the back bed of the truck dip like something heavy had just climbed in. And again, his uncle said, "Look at me. Don't look away. Just look at me. Keep looking at me. Don't look anywhere else. Look at me." And this time, Joe heard the tapping from the window behind him. And Joe said he didn't know what was going on, but it was getting harder for him to breathe because he was starting to panic. And this went on for a couple more minutes like this when all of a sudden he felt the truck bed dip again. And his uncle looks around. Everything was quiet. All they could hear was the truck and the road. And his uncle looked at him and said in Navajo, "In the morning, we will have your father do a prayer so that evil will forget our faces." And Joe says he remembers just curling up into a ball on the seat of that truck and watching the clock minutes tick by and listening to his uncle sing a Navajo prayer under his breath until they got to Grandma's house. So sometime later, Joe had a nightmare about that night. So he calls his uncle so they could talk about it for a little bit. And his uncle said, "I never saw any faces, just eyes, like the brake lights you see on the road. But it was watching you." And when their conversation was over and they were about to hang up, Joe says he tried to joke with him about it and said, "Why didn't you just hit the brakes?" And his uncle didn't laugh and just said, "Because it wasn't alone."